A customer wrote this painting company a review. Look how long it is. They named 8 different employees, the color consultant who talked them out of the wrong shade, the carpenter who asked before making changes. 6 days start to finish, exactly as promised. This is the best review a contractor can get. A real customer doing your marketing for you for free. Here's what the company wrote back. That's it. Not much more than a form letter. It's not terrible, but given that Rich wrote such a long and detailed review, the owner could have written a more thoughtful and detailed response. And this is one of the best painting companies in the area. 300 plus reviews, top of the market. If they're leaving this on the table, everybody is. Today, 2 things. First, what review responses actually do for your business, because most of what's written about this is fluff. And what I found in this market surprised me. And second, I built an AI agent that reads a review, drafts a real response in the owner's voice, and waits for approval before anything goes live. I'll run it on one of these exact reviews on camera. But first, I pulled an entire industry in one town. I pulled every painting contractor in Walnut Creek, California, an affluent market in the East Bay Area, straight from Google's own public data. The same data anyone can see, just organized. All of the names are anonymized, so these aren't real company names. There are 28 companies. For each one, how many reviews, how fast they're coming in, and how often the owner actually responds. I sorted this by velocity over the last 12 months. New reviews in the last 12 months, because that's the number that actually tells you who's winning right now. And look at that. The company at the top isn't even the one with the most reviews. The fastest growing painter here is adding more than 80 reviews a year and picking up speed. The shop with the biggest total, over 300 reviews, is actually getting outpaced on new ones. Meanwhile, the bottom of the list, some people haven't seen a review since 2023. 2 companies out of 28 have never even gotten a single one. That's the spread in one market. Now here's where it gets interesting, and I want to show you how to read your own numbers because this one trips a lot of people up. Look at this response rate column. Dorian's Painting, the fastest growing shop, responds to 88.6% of its reviews. The next one down responds to 76.6%. So far, so good. You'd think this market has it figured out. Then look at the third fastest growing painter in this market, 11.8%. They're growing fast and ignoring almost 9 out of 10 reviews. So even at the very top, it's already a mixed bag, and it gets worse from here. But watch what happens when I stop looking at the leaders and look at the typical business. The median painter in this market responds to less than a quarter of their reviews, 23%, which you can see right here. Those 80% numbers at the top are a handful of big shops dragging the whole average up. The typical painter here barely responds at all, which if you've ever actually looked at contractor profiles is probably what you already suspected. So there are 2 problems sitting in this one market. Most shops aren't responding, and the few at the top that do respond, when you actually read what they wrote, aren't responding well. That second part is the part that really surprised me, and that's where we're going. Now, a quick word on why reviews matter for rankings, because I want to be straight with you where a lot of videos aren't. So here's the honest version. Google ranks local businesses on 3 things: how close you are to the searcher, how relevant your profile is, and how prominent, how much Google trusts that you're a real active business. Reviews are the biggest prominence lever you control. Volume, velocity, recency. Those move rankings. Here's what I'm not going to tell you: that responding to reviews is some magic ranking trick. Responding is encouraged. It keeps your profile active, but nobody outside Google can prove a response moved a ranking. What responding actually does is something else, and it's arguably more valuable. So hold that thought, because here's where it got interesting. When I read what these companies are actually writing back to their customers, I found the real gap. Remember this: the customer wrote 3,000 words, named 8 employees, and the response was a form letter that could go under literally any review. Nothing wrong with it. It's polite. It's just brief and not really worthy of the glowing review they received. It engages with none of what this person actually said. That's the gap in this market. It's not that they don't respond. It's that responding became a checkbox. And here's why that's a missed opportunity. And it's got nothing to do with rankings. Think about who reads these. Not Google, an actual person. Someone deciding which painter to call. Reading your reviews right now. When they see a customer rave about your color consultant by name and see how you reply, "Thanks so much," they learn something about you. When they see an owner who actually engages, remembers the job, sounds like a human who was there, they learn something better. That's what a response does. It's not an SEO move. It's the closest thing you've got to standing next to that customer while your next customer decides. So what does a real response look like? 3 things. 1, it addresses the specific thing they said. They mentioned the crew protected their floors. Mention the floors. That's the whole trick, and almost nobody does it. 2, it sounds like the owner, a person with a name who was there, not a company voice. And 3, it fits naturally. The service, the town worked in only where it belongs, but never stuffed. Now, the bad reviews. And this is where I want to be careful because I only looked at one market, one affluent town, one trade, and mostly the top companies, the ones most likely to have this figured out. So don't take Walnut Creek, California as the whole world. Run this in a different town and you might find nobody responds at all, which is a different problem and honestly an easier one to beat. But here on the negative reviews, I found something worth more than any template. This company got a detailed complaint and they wrote back a genuinely good response that was apologetic and professional. "We are committed to making this right." A textbook response. If I showed you just that reply, you'd think they nailed it. Then the customer came back weeks later and edited her review. So much for kind words. Nobody ever followed up. The polished apology went nowhere. That's the real lesson. The response text was never the hard part. Writing, "We'll make this right," is easy. Actually making it right, following up, closing the loop, that's the whole game. A beautiful reply that isn't backed by action isn't a win. It's a public promise you're now on record breaking. Hold on to that because it changes what the AI is actually for. And I know what you're thinking. Even the easy part, the writing, takes time you don't have. You're under a house, you're on a ladder, you're not composing thoughtful replies at 7 a.m. That's the right objection. And here's the modern answer and where it stops. Every article about review management says the same thing. Never use automated responses. And they're right about the old kind of automated response, the canned template. "Thanks for your feedback," which, funny enough, is what a lot of these companies are producing by hand anyway. What I built is the opposite of a canned template. The AI does the drafting, the human keeps the judgment, and this is the part that matters after what we just saw. The human keeps the follow through. Let me show you. Here's the whole thing on one slide. A review comes in. The agent reads it. The actual content, the rating, the name, what they mentioned. It drafts a response following 3 rules. Address the specifics, use the owner's voice, and use natural sounding language. Then it stops. Nothing auto-publishes. The draft goes to the owner, who approves, edits, or rejects it. And on a bad review, it does one more thing. It flags it for follow-up, so the reply doesn't become a promise that nobody keeps. Remember Barbara. The draft is the easy part. The system is what makes sure "we'll make this right" actually happens. Okay, so here is the agent code under the hood. I won't spend too much time on this because I don't know how much interest there is in this, but basically the first part of this is going out and reading the reviews, using public data via some APIs to go out and read a lot of the reviews that are already present on Google business profiles out there. The second part of this is the brain, the AI brain. I'm using Claude here. Anthropic is the company behind Claude. They have an API that I'm using. There are other companies, obviously, that you can use, but in this particular instance, I'm using Claude and Anthropic. And the prompt written behind in terms of how to analyze and draft the responses is based on my experience of reading and analyzing a lot of Google reviews over the years. So there's a lot of criteria in there in terms of how to draft a review, in terms of never argue, never get defensive, never share customer details, never make excuses. Those aren't really suggestions in the prompt. They're the constraints in which the prompt operates, so that the response that comes back is generally pretty close to what the owner might want. They might want to change a few things, but in general, it's a usable base to sort of work off of. And then third, the approval step. So the owner is able to edit it, read it, alter it, but a lot of the work is already done for them. And then when I've got this set up, this will actually publish back through Google's own business profile API. So you actually don't have to log into your Google business profile. You can just push it from an application straight into your Google Business Profile review page, and it'll post the review there. And I'll show you a little bit about how that works in a second. Okay, so let's actually run this review right now. We're going to run this right from the terminal inside of this code editor here. I do have a nicer application where you can really see this in a web page and edit it, and it looks really nice, but I just kind of wanted to demonstrate how this works. So let's just run this full agent loop right now. And what's happening here is all of the current review that was written is being analyzed, and a response is also being generated based on the points that the customer raised. So it normally takes about 15 to 20 seconds. Okay, so here's Rich's review. You recall Rich's review from earlier in the video. And here is the fictional owner, Mike's response here. So he says, Rich, thank you so much for taking the time to write all of this out. It genuinely means a lot to me and to the whole crew. I love hearing that Sarah's color guidance paid off the way it did, because that moment where a color you weren't totally sure about comes together across the whole house is always a great one. And Luis turning what sounded like a pretty stressful day into a non-issue is exactly the kind of thing I hope our project managers are doing. So you can see it's a much more personalized response based on the very long response that Rich originally wrote. Much better than just sort of, hey, thanks for writing a review. That means a lot. You're really addressing the customer's points. You're acknowledging that the wonderful things they said about you are valid. And it's just a much better way of doing this than thank you for writing a review. So obviously, there's probably things about this you might want to change. And I'll show you how the application sets this up to edit. But this is a really good first start. And again, it's much better than just a very short, terse review. So let's take a look at how the agent is behind a web application where you can actually see it working inside of a web page. We'll look at that right now. Now let's look at all three the way I'd actually review them day to day. This is a simple web interface I built. It pulls up the review, the agent drafts a reply, and I can edit or approve it right here. So let's start with that glowing review that Rich A left, the one that got the form letter very brief response. So let's run the agent and watch it draft. So we can see it writing the draft here. And once the draft is written, Mike can go in, he can edit it here, change anything around. And then when he likes it, he can approve it, or he can reject it and write another one. But look what this review did that the company didn't do in their original review. It names Sarah specifically for the color consultation, and it says something real about her, not just her name. The same with Luis. It calls out exactly what he did, turning a stressful day into a non-issue. And notice this line: I'll make sure Mark, Sarah, Luis, Hector, Marco, and the rest all see this. That shows that Mike cares about his employees as well, and he wants to recognize the great job they did. Next to thanks so much, that's not a small difference. That's a difference between a customer feeling seen and feeling processed. Now let's run one on a real complaint here. So this reply acknowledges the specific issue, the door, the warranty confusion. There's no defensiveness, and it apologizes like a person. It takes it offline. So here's the honest part. The real company's written response to Barbara was actually pretty good too. The AI didn't win because it wrote something magic. If you look what's different here, there's a flag for follow-up required here. The system is flagging this one because we know how Barbara's story ended. A good draft that nobody follows up on is how you get so much for kind words in your reviews. The draft is 30 seconds, but the follow-up is the real job. Okay, so let's look at one more review, which is the toughest kind, a long and detailed and genuinely frustrated review. So let's run the agent on this and see what it comes up with. Okay, so it doesn't argue a single point. It acknowledges it, it owns it, and it offers a real conversation. And really, it's a draft. So if the owner knows something the review left out, they can edit it before it ever posts. But it ends up really saving the owner a lot of time. They just have to read through it, offer some judgment, maybe change some words around, rephrase things, instead of 30 minutes spent trying to craft a reply where you're just dreading the entire thing. So here's the honest version of the pitch. AI won't fix your reviews. It writes a strong first draft in the owner's voice in seconds. That's real, and it clears the "I don't have time" excuse for good. But the response was never the hard part. Automate the drafting, but keep the judgment. And whatever you do, keep the follow through. That's the part no model does for you. Everything you saw in this video today ran on one trade in one affluent town in Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area. And I found decent responses with a follow-through problem. Your market might look completely different. The painter across town from you might not respond at all. That's the point. You don't actually know what your reviews look like to the customer deciding right now. And this agent is one piece of something bigger I'm building. A system where your reviews, your calls, and your leads all get handled this way. Follow through included. More on that soon. Next episode, a painter who ranks great in his own town and is completely invisible 15 minutes away. Same company, same quality, and Google treats him like he doesn't exist. We'll figure out why. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Thanks for watching.